tell me about this, Chris. I am so stressed about playing things, air quotes here, playing things right. And I think maybe this has a lot to do with my background as, playing in competitive pipe bands. But like when it comes to playing the whistle, even, I'm like, am I doing this right? Like what are the rules? And you make tonguing, the tactic, that strategy of using the tongue to break up notes sound so cool. And so I'm curious, is that like kosher, or are you being a bad boy and breaking rules when you do that? I mean, either way, it sounds cool, but I'm just curious. Is that a thing?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, um, yeah, I think there's kind of different ways to approach that, and I think playing the whistle and in different settings and with different instruments, it can be approached in many different ways, um, and yeah, it's certainly kind of one part of playing the whistle, as well as certain kind of finger techniques that I like to use. I would say
Mm,
it obviously depends on the type of tunes and like maybe the tempos and just kind of personal choices on how to like articulate
mm.
melodies. So yes, sometimes I'd maybe use the tonguing more than others, and other times other finger work. But yeah, I think it's wide open for how much each individual wants to kind of use that technique, I would say.
Yeah. Well, it sounds, like I say, it sounds so cool. So it's not me passing judgment. I'm an outsider, I feel, and I'm so like conscious of that myself. And so I was just curious. That's it's very cool. Another like really strong example of that tactic is in track 8. Is it mince in? Is it shuffle?
Yeah, so it's 8 minutes, so like just like eight minutes in Schiphol, like the airport. So
Oh, clever.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Basically, that as we've maybe all been there. That was a very quick transfer through that airport. Um, so it's a speedy wee polka that was written after that journey. So, um,
Mm.
uh-huh.
I played trumpet years and years ago, and it sounds to me like you're even doing some double tonguing, like a brass player might do. Is that right? Like using the tip and the middle of your tongue to get some of those rapid, like triplet sounds in there.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I think kind of changes how it sounds as well is some of the some of the tracks on the album use different keys of whistles,
Ah.
and some are kind of um, lower sounding or higher sounding than others, and that kind of creates maybe a slightly different, even like a different amount of brightness or maybe clarity to like the tonguing. Um,
Mm.
so that can kind of change how that projects and cuts through, I would say.
Mm.
Hmm.
So, do you have a I don't want to say embarrassing amount, but are you one who has an impressive number of like whistles? Like, do you have a like is there a Scrooge McDuck situation where you open the door to a vault in your basement and you just dive into a pile of whistles and swim around in them until you find the one you need?
Well, maybe not quite to those extremes. However, I do have a range of whistles in different keys um, that I use for playing with other instruments, and then a few kind of handy keys that are good for example, like instrumentals for with singers, just to be flexible with like keys there. So,
Mm.
but yeah, I have I kind of a good kind of wee range of whistles that kind of covers, um, like the different settings that I'm playing in. So
Hmm.
yeah,
So you, of course, you play piano, which is chromatic. You got a large range there. Though now that I say that, you're pretty accomplished with like half hole and cross fingering and stuff. So pretty much anything you touch is basically chromatic anyway, I guess for you, right? But I'm just curious. In your head when you're swapping out from whistle to whistle to whistle, are you playing and thinking in the key of that whistle, or are you like is your head going back home to like bagpipe fingering? Like, are you thinking in A while you're playing an F whistle kind of thing? How does that work for you?
yeah, it's a good question. Usually I'm thinking in the key of that whistle.
Wow.
Um, but then there are occasions where, um, for example, the first whistle, and it quite often is the most common whistle people first learn on would be the lower like high D whistle.
Mm,
Um, so there's obviously certain patterns that maybe become more ingrained, and then there's an element of like thinking about those on like another key of whistle.
mm-hmm,
Um, yeah, so and then sometimes I've been in settings where actually there has had to be like quite a quick switch of whistle. For example, if it's maybe with a group where they there's a quick decision to play a tune that's familiar but in a different key.
mm,
So that might be in that case. It might work, or the quickest way to do that is retaining the same finger work but just lifting another whistle, um, as opposed to having to think about completely kind of transposing and changing finger patterns, which is that obviously happens all the time as well. Um, so yeah, like a bit of both, I would say.
mm,
There's certainly having uh, learned the pipes from a young age, and that being the first instrument I did learn.
mm,
There's certain things that are ingrained from that, and both on piano and whistle. When I first picked up those instruments, there was certainly a lot of pipe tunes being played initially, you know.
I'm sure, yeah.
So yeah, so like a bit of both, I would say, certainly. Just
Mm,
again, depending on the setting and different instrumentalists or singers that you're kind of playing with. So, and the
mm.
music, of course.
Maybe it's been too long, so no sweat if you don't recall. But I am curious if when you first started playing on the piano, did you have that experience? Because like I think that a lot of us who start on pipes or get on pipes very early in like our musical experience, we might be reading a lot of music that doesn't have the F sharp and the C sharp like noted on the music, and so then we sit down at a piano and we think, okay, I'm going to play, I don't know, Baron Rocks of Adden or something, right? And we go to play it and we go, oh, what that doesn't sound right, or we get tripped up by that odd little seventh that's a little extra flat for us on the pipes. Do you remember having any experiences like that, or were you already aware of which keys would be the white keys and the black keys kind of thing?
I would say naturally from the early stages of sitting with the instrument, or sitting with the piano, I think like very quickly your like the ears would kind of step in and say, "Oh, wait a second." So, and then just a kind of trial and error
Mm,
initially, um, before the kind of maybe formality of even kind of instruction and stuff like that. But yeah, just obviously coming from knowing how the tunes sound on the pipes, there's a familiarity there, and then I guess going to another instrument, you're looking to try and recreate that. And if there was wee things that kind of jumped out, it would just kind of adjust these wee bits to yeah, to kind of recreate that tune and find what we're looking for.
mm,
I would say obviously the range is, once it was put onto the piano, became kind of really familiar with that quite quickly, just playing lots of different um, pipe tunes as well. So yeah, the range of the majority of the pipe tunes became familiar quite quickly, I would say.
mm. I think it'd be fun to pull. We'll listen to a little bit of track 9. Is it the Haas?
Yeah, so the Haas, it's basically that's a area um, very close to where I'm originally from, in the southwest of Scotland. And this set has two tunes. The second one is called the Haas Jig, and refers to just behind my family. Home, there's an area called the Haas, um, and the first tune was written for a close family friend. Um, so yeah, that's this set.
Now, when we've talked a lot about whistles and talking piano too. Like, what all instruments do you play, Chris? And are there any that the public doesn't know about? Like, let's break the news now. You know that you're a closet ukulele player. What all are you spending your time expressing music on?
So yeah, obviously highland pipes and also border pipes and whistles and piano as we've discussed there.
Mm.
Um, Initially, when I was growing up, I first picked up the highland pipes, and then in my teens it was piano, and then a wee bit later the whistle. Um, and so initially I was doing loads of piping um, before kind of touching the other instruments. Nowadays, I play probably as much of each instrument as the others.
Mm.
Um, it just depends. But yeah, I'm kind of active playing like all those instruments, different things throughout the year. So
Can
yeah.
you tell me maybe a little bit more about the like a little bit of a biopic kind of situation? Like, what why did you start playing pipes in the first place? Did you have a piper in the family, or were you drawn to it? Was it a school program? And maybe tell me a bit about that. Little Chris Gray. When you're what was that like? That picture at home when you were just a little kid.
So I first started to learn the pipes after my dad also played. Um, he he played when he was in his teens, and then he's actually stopped playing. But then later on, when I was around, and then also my big brother, he restarted playing.
Mm.
It was actually he was given a set of pipes as a birthday present. When myself and my brother were around. So that was a wee bit of motivation for him to start playing again.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in the house, and then so my brother actually started playing before me, and we would go along to a local band for the lessons. And initially, for the first 5 6 months, I wasn't playing, but I was going along to these sessions, and I think I just had like the Game Boy in the hand.
Oh yeah.
And I think I was just sitting playing some uh, footy game or something else. But I was kind of listening into what was going on, and then my brother was learning. And then eventually, I was obviously still going to these sessions weekly, um, and the screw turned at some point. It's like, okay, I think we'll have a try here.
Mm-hmm.
So I started playing, and then so going along to those sessions, and with my father, my dad playing in the house, there was a kind of like a natural um, motivation there to start playing, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the
So
rest kind of happened after that.
were the three of you, your dad, your brother, and you, all playing with the local band at the same time at any point?
So my brother and I played with the same band. Well, over time we've actually played for quite a few of the same bands,
Mm.
but we played in the local band, and my dad played actually in a different local band. um
Uh-oh. Was that fuel for drama at home? Any any
no,
competition
not
issues?
at all, not at all. Not at all. It was just kind of just the way it kind of it landed, and just the opportunities with tuition and things like that. But
Oh yeah.
there's nothing, no.
Well, you wouldn't have been far off from being able to start your own band just from home, just the family band.
A wee trio, yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like the like going from playing pipes? Well, actually, first of all, was it competition heavy for you? Were you straight into solos? Were there a lot of public performances? Like, what do you feel like the flavor of your early piping was in that way? Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm not trying to disparage one way of playing or the other, but like, was it like highly regimented, rigid kind of piping, or was it kind of like creative free play kind of piping, or did you get a good mix?
I had a good mixture of different things, I would say. But initially, with the local band, there was actually we did a lot of a lot of galas and like parades in the local community,
Mm,
um, and the band had a wealth of really good players, even though they weren't doing a lot of competitions. But from a young age, I was encouraged to do many solo piping competitions. So, and I did that for a long time from a young age, and yeah, I did that year upon year. Um, but at the same time, material wise, I was doing a lot of kind of fun stuff as well. So um, we had all the kind of things for the parades, and then lots of kind of more lively material like hornpipes and jigs and reels, and so that was kind of always fed in from the start. So it wasn't I wasn't kind of solely doing like competition material, but there was a good mixture. But fundamentally, like a really good strong grounding in technique, which kind of set up for playing any form.
mm.
Um, yeah.
At what point along this trajectory or along your path there, did you kind of think to yourself, or did you ever think to yourself, I'm going to be a musician. Like this is what I'm going to do. Were you pursuing it hard from the beginning, or did that come on slowly, or have a moment where you realized it?
So initially, like from a very young age, and then all the way through teens and school, I was playing a lot, and I was like naturally drawn to in my free time to be playing or kind of messing around with something on instrument.
Mm-hmm.
In early secondary school, there was a workshop in my school. There was actually a by a fantastic Scottish jazz pianist called Richard Michael,
Mm,
and he came into my school and did a workshop, and that was really what inspired me to pursue learning piano.
mm.
Um, so from yeah, early secondary school, I started to become more involved with that. But then the latter years of secondary school was when I was really kind of set on uh, going to study music and then pursue a career in music as well.
Yeah. You mentioned right from the start. Well, as it's come up a couple times now. That some of these tunes are, you've written some of your songs after going through an airport or for a family friend, etc. And your collection, 41, 41 tunes in there, which I gathered. I saw the video that you put out. I gathered like six of those are from some other sources, but still, like you've got a pretty thick collection of original music there. In that, what is the collection called? Contemporary tunes from Scotland. Is that what the title of the collection?
Yeah, that's correct.
So how early did you start writing music? Was that a natural thing that was just happening from the beginning, or did you like take a class and say, "Now I shall begin writing music"? Because that's a big collection of tunes, man. That's impressive.
Oh, thanks very much. So I did start writing tunes. I'm trying to remember exactly when. Again, I think it was early teens.
Mm.
Um, early teens. I started writing. I
I'd,
started writing
I'd
first tunes. Mm-hmm.
I'd imagine that probably your process changes over time. But what is that tune writing process like for you? Like, is it pen and paper? Are you leaving yourself voice memos, like singing it, and then later, piecing it out? Do you always go to the piano, whether it's a pipe tune or a whistle tune or anything? Like what does that usually look like for you?
Yeah. Yeah. This is a really fun one to talk about actually because it does vary quite a bit, and it's it's been everything from I remember back from the first few tunes I wrote when I was really young. I had the manuscript paper, and I was there with either the practice chanter or the piano, and I was just putting stuff down on manuscript, and then over time it would also be. voice memo ideas.
Mm.
So that obviously being handy. If there's a wee idea that comes, but you're not kind of maybe sitting with the instrument, and yeah, I maybe wouldn't maybe wouldn't a lot of it maybe wouldn't make total sense if someone else was to listen to it, but
Yeah.
the next time I go to an instrument or something, I know like kind of that wee hook or something that I'd kind of came up. So a bit of that, and then also yeah, I love sitting at the piano and exploring ideas as well.
Mm.
Um, Naturally, because that is such a good instrument for being able to just hear harmony as well as the like the melodic ideas, and then if it's something that's going to be uh, arranged into for other instruments, the opportunities there are vast. So
Mm.
I quite often and certainly with a lot of the stuff with the album, I would sit and improvise a lot of ideas, and then just maybe listen back to them and explore any particular ideas that I thought were interesting or kind of jumped
Mm.
out.
Mhm.
Um, but quite free in that sense. And then laterally, um, I would use like Sibelius notation for a lot of stuff to kind of
Mm.
hear back some ideas and like eventually kind of score them out and whatnot. So
Yeah. A lot of well, I hesitate to say a lot of this is one of the things I get nervous about, Chris, is that I don't ever want to seem like I'm considering myself like the arbiter of what your music is, right? Like, so just speaking as one listener, like as I'm listening through the album, right? Something that stands out to me as being really cool and lovely that I really enjoy about this is this. I don't know what to call it. Maybe I'd call it something like melody doubling, where it might be whistle and fiddle, or it might be guitar and piano, but I'm hearing like two instruments playing the melody line right together, and it kind of has this cool sort of almost like spatial effect with the music. Like it kind of makes it big in a way,
mm,
which I feel like
mhm.
can be tricky with melody, right? Because melody often is just the one voice doing the one line of notes, and so doubling it up, I think, is a cool effect. I really enjoy that, and I feel like it comes up in a few of your tunes, of the tracks on this album anyway. Track 4, actually, Colossal Campbell, I feel like has some really great examples. Is that tactic something that you've thought about and done very purposefully, or do you feel like that's like maybe a flavor thing that's just naturally coming out of you, like kind of part of your fingerprint that's just happening?
Hmm. I think that I mean naturally, um, it was just really fun to hear, to kind of hear the tunes played on other instruments,
Mm.
and then naturally, like with each musician's own style, they would kind of bring their own flavor to it and ideas. Um, I think in terms of certainly like in recording and also I guess like live performances, when there's two or more instruments playing the melody at the same time, there's some choices to be made, obviously, with like how much that matches up, like note for note, or if that's going to be a bit freer and kind of just let some like variations and stuff kind of just appear without kind of thinking about it too much. I found generally there was kind of like a balance of both of those things. So wee articulation things that would be matched just so that was kind of tidier, but then at the same time keeping it free, so there's opportunities for everyone to just kind of add wee variations, and so it's not kind of too rigid. But yeah, I think that's kind of personal taste as well, like how kind of in depth that goes. But yeah, on a level, it was just kind of fun to play the tunes with other instrumentalists.
Yeah. Well, I love the effect. I think it's a lot of fun. Certainly not to say that there aren't. Of course, there's lots of really cool harmonies and counterpoint and stuff going on this album as well. But I was curious about that. Like when there is tight unison between more than one voice making the melody there, is that a recording challenge, or does it come down to like, between a couple of accomplished musicians, maybe you just play it through once or twice and you're both kind of taking mental notes on, oh, we'll hold that one a little longer, oh, we'll cut from that one a little faster, and it comes together fairly quickly? Did you have any like long nights where you're ripping your hair out trying to get something perfect as you're putting the album together, or was it a fairly smooth, natural kind of process?
There was, in terms of like the melody lines, and there was certain things that I was quite set on as I was writing the tunes. As in terms of like how certain bits would be played rhythmically, or wee melodic passages, but then at the same time, that always I found adapts and changes when you bring it to a group and also a recording setting. So there was things that were set, and then also things that changed, that just as they were being recorded or listening back, or even there might be a kind of wee influence from something that's happening with like the backing and chord players that actually changes your
Oh,
rhythm.
sure.
Actually, maybe this might fit that better. And then there's wee kind of adjustments made. Or as you're hearing like another instrument playing your tune, you're thinking, actually, wait a minute, this actually might sound a bit more kind of natural on that instrument. It might feel great on the instrument you're playing, but there might be something that just fits a wee bit better on that other instrument, or kind of just there could be a different quality to kind of achieve there. So yeah, so a lot like the basis was all there, but then it was like quite flexible at the same time.
Gotcha. Well,
Yeah.
you mentioned like ideas of rhythm as well, and one of the tracks that I just thought it's just delightful as far as what it does rhythmically, And again, that's just me saying I enjoyed it. I'm not trying to be like the judge who says, well, this one was good, you know. But the track 7, it's called Joe Boardman's. Um,
Mhm.
there's this like rhythm hopping thing that happens. It feels almost like you're saying the same sentence over and over again, but changing which syllable is getting emphasized. Do you know what I mean? That's probably a poor way to describe it. Does that make any sense? Like, it's like this rhythm, like I don't know where the punch is gonna fall, and then it falls in a different spot, and it's really fun.
Yeah, so there's a wee kind of rhythmic break in this set, and there's a lot of kind of pushes and what we call like pushes and like stabs. So
Was that
more of a
pushies? Like pushies and stabs?
yeah, exactly. So essentially just like pushing where the chord lands,
Oh,
forward
interesting. Yeah.
or back, like in the arrangement, um, and yeah, there's certainly more of a kind of rhythmic focus in the ensemble at that point,
Yeah.
and it's quite a kind of common like arrangement idea, I guess, like in between, like where you've got the main focus on the melodies. So you've got, for example, the first tune, and then there's a wee break maybe before like the main melody returns.
Mm.
So it just takes it in a wee different direction for a little while. Um, Showcases like uh, the backing elements, and then bringing back like the melodic ideas. So
Mm.
and
Wow,
also
that's
kind of
delightful.
expanding on like wee elements of the main melody and um like wee themes that are in there and just uh yeah, I guess yeah, just forming that part of the arrangement with it. So
Hmm. Now that track also, that Joe Boardman's, it's got some of your really impressive like accidentals, cross fingering or half holing or whatever it is that you're doing. And I've watched a few videos of you playing, Chris. Not thinking that I can replicate it, but just like wanting to see what you're doing with your fingers on the pipes and whistle. You know, just like how's he getting that note? And I feel like the people at Celtic Connections were being just cruel because it seems like they got the bottom hand of the chanter just out of frame, or they cut the, like the to the other camera just when I was about to see, how you got your C natural or something like that, right? So what is your strategy with maybe with pipes, with whistles in general? Like how do you go about getting those extra notes out of the instrument?
mm, on the pipes, like the Highland pipes, certainly, um, I always try to be quite meticulous with like the instrument setup, and I just kind of whether it's kind of like a setup with pipes for like a folk ensemble or just like a solo instrument or like pipe band. It's something I just love setting up the instrument to be as good as it can be, and
Mm.
um, that ultimately makes it easier to get these notes. And um, I try to have a kind of reed chanter setup that's going to be most forgiving towards that,
Mm-hmm.
um, and like most consistent. Um, so then that's kind of half the battle. And then obviously like thinking about like so the what would say like if like so the F natural, you would there's obviously a couple of ways you can do that, but I I, I think it's again personal taste on how what kind of feels comfortable
Mm.
for the individual as well. But and yeah, going by what the instrument's going to kind of allow you to do as well. So
Yeah,
um,
that's kind of the first maybe biggest hurdle, right? Is what will the instrument allow you to do in the first place?
yeah, because I think once just like any other kind of note we play, once you've been over the shape a good number of times, then it becomes familiar.
Mm,
So yeah, I think the instrument setup is key, because ultimately the finger work could be spot on, but if the if the capabilities of actually getting the chromatics is not there, then it's not going to happen. So
yeah,
um, yeah, so that's a biggie for me. Yeah.
makes sense. So many of the tracks, maybe all of them on this album, seem to be tied to places and traveling. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I enjoy that. Like as I listen to this album, I feel like a lot of this music is like evocative of those kinds of experiences of like arrival, of traveling between places, maybe even of missing places. Um, and I feel like it'd be a great soundtrack for like a road trip or something along those lines too. Am I reading too much into that, or is that a theme for this album, or was it an accident that that happened to be the case, or maybe it's not the case? What do you think?
No, you're absolutely spot on there. So there's a lot of tracks, as you say, that are kind of named after different experiences with travel and music and people and different things. But yeah, I love traveling and the experiences that's brought me, and I always find that that naturally brings inspiration. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of tracks that are named after after those different occasions
Mm-hmm.
and experiences and places.
Yeah. So, kind of pulling you back into your teenage years, well, or maybe before then, at what point did you feel like you started to be aware of, focus on, or work with chords, harmonies and chords, I guess? Were you have all melody until you started playing piano, or had you started experimenting with writing harmonies for pipes in your pipe band? Because of course this is a full band that we're hearing. You know, there are chord shapes and forms and melodies going, or melodies and harmonies going on all over the place here. Where did that come into your awareness and your focus?
hmm Um, so yeah, I would say like taking up the piano was definitely kind of a catalyst there. Um, I played a lot of different music even in the early stages, but um, essentially on at the very first stages, taking some of the familiar pipe tunes and placing those on the piano, and then just kind of playing with around with ideas with chords and thinking what could kind of work here, um, and that was like a good start, and then I started to with that and through composition that I was doing at school as well, I would start to kind of arrange that out into and think about other instruments. Um, so yeah, I think essentially, starting to learn the piano and pursue that was a big thing. I certainly always I had prior to that, I'd always played a lot of harmonies, like purely on the pipes. There was always like a really good opportunity with that, with obviously my like in particular played a lot with my brother when we were growing up
Oh, of
um
course, yeah,
in the house. So um like during our lessons or like band and then the different things that we would play at together, different events. So that was yeah, we were both incredibly lucky to kind of have each other to kind of play and like bounce ideas off as well. So that was certainly like a very natural way to try some harmonies or
yeah.
um, just to do that. So.
I'm imagining that for the pipe major, when you two were in the same band, it might have been really handy to be able to just like for a performance at a gala or something like that, be like, oh, we need another 5 minutes for the set. Oh, we'll have the Gray brothers do something. They'll have something, and just be like, you two, go ahead. Was it ever like that? Did you have a couple favorites up your sleeve that the two of you could bust out at the drop of a hat?
I mean, when we were growing up, it was always good fun. You know, there's certainly when we were both always encouraged to um we always had kind of a range of music on the go. There was never it was never like we were never short of different music on the go.
Mm,
Um, it certainly wasn't kind of really strict in the sense where we only had to kind of play a couple of tunes and kind of play those until they were, you know, at a certain level, or
mm.
we were getting about lots of different types of tunes, and which I thought was really fun, and it was um, obviously great for building repertoire and just reading different music as well. So
Mm.
um, yeah, so yeah, the culture of that when I was young was I thought was great.
Yeah.
It was there was often even at bands or different events there was time for everybody to share something and everybody to try something, or if they had a tune that they want to just have some fun with. So um yeah,
Sounds like it was a very encouraging atmosphere for you to get your start in.
absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
It was yeah, definitely really fortunate in that sense.
And if I remember right, one of those six tunes that is not one of your own in your collection of music, the one of is one by your brother. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
That's very cool. Another of my favorite tracks from the album, if I had to pick some favorites, would be track 3, and that's another one that has really great examples of what I think are just really cool harmonies and counterpoint. That's LA's Welcome to the Wally.
Yeah. So that the first tune in that track, and also that's referring to the title of that track, is probably one of the first tunes that I wrote, um, and it's intended as a celebratory tune. Basically, my I going back to my time in school. They had a link with a school in in Malawi in Africa,
Oh,
and they came to visit 1 year. So, and this tune was composed for that and performed at that time. So yeah, it was composed for their visit to Scotland.
oh, that's cool. Could you tell me about the team for this album? Kind of like your team of musicians, as well as like I was delightfully surprised, like excited to see that Callum McCrimmon had something to do with it behind the scenes. I didn't even realize that he did that kind of like production work. I thought it was, I'm familiar with his performances, of course. That's where you see a performer, right? And so I didn't realize he did other stuff. Could you tell me a little bit about the musicians you brought in and other people who did work for you on this album?
Hmm. Of course. Yeah, well, I guess first of all, when you mentioned Callum there, as well as being um, well-known performer and composer and many different things himself, he's a fantastic person to have on board just to kind of bounce ideas off, um, and to have his input across uh, the album, the compositions, the arrangements, the roles of each kind of musician and each instrument. So yeah, he was involved with producing, and then each track of the album, every track has fiddle, guitar, bass, and drums. So all 10 tracks has that, plus either highland pipes or whistle, and piano on
Mm.
each track. So that was kind of the main lineup that features all the way through. And then there are some musicians that played on like a selection of tracks. So there was some cello on a few tracks, some mandolin, and some concertina on a few tracks. And the whole lineup of musicians, they're all um, incredible people and musicians.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so there was Graham McKenzie was on fiddle and also laid down some string parts. I had Innes White on acoustic and electric guitars, James Lindsay on bass and moog, Mark Scobie on drums, Alice Allen on cello, Laura Beth McCrimmon on mandolin, and Mozen Amini on concertina. Um,
He's the Talisk guy, right?
that's right. Yes.
Yeah, I thought he looked familiar. I was like, wait a second, I've seen him with other
Yeah,
bands before. Yeah, that's right.
that's right. So like everybody that was involved with the album um, plays with a range of bands and projects
Yeah.
within Scotland and beyond, and yeah, they're um, all brilliant people to collaborate with. So.
Hey, friends, thanks very much for tuning into this episode. Just taking a fast minute here. I'll be really quick to thank you for listening and let you know that I've got links to Chris's album, the one we've been talking through, as well as anywhere else you can find him on the internet. I've tried to pull that all together and put it in the show notes for you. So hop over and get a copy of this album. It's excellent if you hadn't noticed already. And what we get to listen to in this interview is only a small portion of what all is on that album. It's really great. And his collection of tunes, I mean, he's got a lot of tunes in there. Chris is making a lot of great music. So check that stuff out. Also, going to give a copy of this album to one lucky patron of the show. The nice people who are supporting the show via Patreon and otherwise. Thank you, Jim. Here comes the Cthulhu Dice Tower to decide who gets a copy of this album. Got a 10. Let's see. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's going to be Alan McKenzie. Thank you so much, Alan, again for supporting the show, and I will get in touch with you with your copy of the album here shortly. Probably by the time this episode has gone out, you will have heard from me. So if anybody else wants to help support the show, of course, I'm not going to stop you from doing so. There are links to where you can do that down below as well. Also, wanted to thank you all very, very much for helping with the Pipes for Peace 100 episode celebration charity project. We just transferred the money over to Peace Through Music International. It ended up being $1,430 to help them in their work providing music to kids in refugee camps and the like. And they've got a big year ahead of them here in 2024. They're looking to expand their program in Poland for the kids that they're helping out of Ukraine, and trying to figure out a way to set up a program for children who have been affected by the Palestine Israel conflict as well. And so, thank you very, very much for your help making that a success. And we will, just on either a quarterly or annual basis, depending on how quickly funds add up, we'll just keep transferring money over to them from that project. I'm working now on making it available elsewhere other than Bandcamp, so it'll be available for streaming and for purchase on iTunes and stuff like that here shortly. iTunes. How old am I? Apple Music, I think, is what it's called now. Anyway, thank you again. Thank you. I hope you're enjoying the show. We are right now listening to another track from this excellent album, Lapis, and I'm just going to let you enjoy the rest of it. And thank you again. Have a lovely day, and you're awesome. Goodbye. And what about the album itself, like as a whole? I may be thinking too hard about it. I think sometimes albums are just a collection of tracks, and I think that's perfectly fine, right? Because the tracks themselves are awesome, and you just have them all together in one place. But especially as I listened from track 5 to track 6, right? That's Lapis is track 5, and then track 6 is High Voltage, which a couple of great tunes. It feels so much like track 5 like lulls me into this like comfortable sense. It's like right in the middle of the album too, you know? And I kind of get like lulled down into this comfortable place, and then High Voltage just absolutely snaps me out of it and wakes me up, and that feels intentional. And that makes me think, oh, what if I zoom out a bit, does Chris have an overarching vision, you know, like for what this album is doing? Yeah, did you, or is it just a collection of tracks? And I say just, I don't mean that would be a bad thing, but I'm just curious, like, what were you thinking as you put the track list together? What made the cut and why, that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really interesting one, and something when I was bringing the album together, when I was considering the track orders, there was many kind of different cases for where kind of certain tracks landed where, and there was some tracks, for example, that were like fully arranged and scored out. Well, I should say that virtually all the tracks were I had arranged and composed and scored them all out prior to the recording. But then there were some things that inevitably changed, and were a bit more kind of open. So, for example, the intro, the first track, that became that was something that was more of a yeah, that was developed in the studio, and just different layers kind of emerged as each musician came in to record. So that kind of naturally found its place there.
I love that that's like the opening though, because it's almost like the intro. I can almost see like the musicians coming on stage one at a time, introducing themselves via that track, like a greeting, like we are the ones who will be providing you for some music this evening, kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah, so that was kind of fun. It was like there was obviously, with writing all the tunes, that was kind of a like prescribed element where it was like, okay, this is what we're going to record. But then at the same time, there was an element of, let's maybe not let's not maybe decide everything, and let's kind of just see what happens, and just let everyone kind of bring their own kind of fun to it. So there was parts of that, and that opening track was like that. um, and then there's the natural kind of dynamic shift when you have the tracks with the highland pipes,
Mm.
as opposed to tracks that have whistle. So that was kind of like another factor in terms of where things are placed. And then some tunes, I think, have more of a conclusive feel, or they maybe feel, they're kind of maybe setting a scene,
Mm-hmm.
um, a journey from more driving sets to, I say, more kind of um, laid back, or settling into a different kind of groove. But there's obviously many different orders you could place these things in,
Yeah.
um, on preference. And I have to say that was quite that was a challenging one, to kind of settle on.
Mm-hmm. I'd imagine it would be very difficult. This is not just not just each track, representing so much of your time and effort in creating like the tunes that are there, but then it's like gathering together your creations to make another creation. I could imagine it. It's surely fun, but I can see how this could be very stressful as well. Like some anxiety about like, wanting to get your thing right. Kind of get the
Mhm.
vision across, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think. I mean, there's so many like vast ways and different ways that albums start, finish, and everything that happens in between. That there's ultimately not a right or wrong answer. It's just kind of what kind of feels good within your kind of own impressions of it, really. So,
Yeah.
um, I think as well, like, if it's intended for like a solely for like an album, as like a project for that, or does an album replicate what something's like live? That's
Oh yeah.
that's a biggie, because they can be very different in their impression, and obviously like the personnel that you might have for that could vary. And so yeah, that's certainly another one.
That's a good point. I've let's see. I'm looking across the track list here and just trying to think like which of these have I seen videos of you doing live, on YouTube and stuff like that. Are any of these? Do any of these represent tunes that you've written that at least so far, exist only as far as the public goes? I mean, like as a studio creation, or have you taken all of this music live at some point by now?
Hmm. So, obviously, with the nature of it being quite a extensive lineup on the album, the the album had its main launch in January 2020 at Celtic Connections,
Mm-hmm.
where we played the full album there, and then there's been kind of various times where um, different tracks have been played even in smaller settings where it's been like a trio or duo or um,
Mm.
things like that. So.
Is that a handy thing for you as a musician, Chris? That to like it's very utilitarian, but like now that you have the album over the last several years, have you had situations where like maybe for a gig you've got a different fiddler or a bouzouki player or whatever it might be who will be teaming up with you for a gig, and you can say, oh well, we're gonna do this track. Oh, here, just listen to this arrangement. We'll just try to approximate that. Like, is it a useful tool in that way to have like your idea exist complete in a place where you can point other people to it and be like, let's just try to do that, or let's do that with some changes, instead of having to meet with them and like go over it. You can just kind of point them in that direction.
I think it certainly is, to an extent. I mean, naturally things evolve, and just um, working with different people, there could be that naturally brings maybe like a different kind of style. So things kind
Mm,
of usually kind of retain like a similar shape, but again be quite flexible with certain things to kind of suit the people that you'd be playing with. Just again, so it kind of feels natural. Um, but yeah, certainly having like the kind of the the fully recorded track there, as a reference is absolutely kind of um is really helpful in those settings.
yeah. How do you handle the just intonation versus equal temperament thing when you're playing your highland pipes with like piano and stuff like that? Is that it's all kind of mysterious to me personally. I hear musicians talk about this and I don't really know how to handle it. Do you just have like a set of pipes that you keep in equal temperament at all times so that they'll play nice with piano, or is it not an issue at all? Does stuff just work out?
Yeah. So yeah, I think usually I'm I'm adjusting the pipes to kind of meet the other instruments as much as possible.
Mhm.
And this may it might lead to a few notes, catch in your ear if you were to kind of maybe hear the pipes by themselves. Um,
Mhm.
that a lot of pipers would be drawn to like hearing it in a certain way, but ultimately it's the most important thing there is to kind of blend with the other instruments. And then obviously when everyone's playing, then these things um, they don't jump out as much because or because they are blended or they are kind of tuned in a way to kind of meet the other instruments.
Mhm.
So yeah, I usually take that approach, but there's slight differences between like as you say when you're maybe going to play with a piano, or if you for example just had like maybe a guitar back and you can maybe soften certain notes, in terms of
Mm.
like how far you go to kind of reach that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense. Yeah.
so um, yeah.
Gotcha. Well, Chris, what else takes up your time? Do you have other do you build model planes, or like what else do you focus on other than music, or is it all music 24/7 for Chris Gray?
um, certainly, yeah, music's on the go, pretty much all the time.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, there's
So
nothing wrong with that, especially if it keeps resulting in, tune books and albums and performances for the rest of us to enjoy, like what you've been putting out.
um, yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think it's yeah, it's certainly music's on the go pretty much all the time. Where it's I could do a lot of kind of performing at events and functions as well, and teaching. So as well as the kind of composing and arranging. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, between the few different things, it's kept quite busy. Um,
Yeah. Well, speaking of quite busy, I don't want to take a ton of your time. You've been really generous with it already. If you don't mind me taking a little more of your time, Chris, I hesitated to do so before, but I just love hearing people nerd out about their kit. Do you feel like you could give me a tour of what it is you're playing these days? This isn't like an official endorsement or anything like that of specific makers, but just like, you know, it's like the "who are you wearing" question on the red carpet. Like, what pipes are you playing? Which reeds do you have in there right now? Which whistles do you like? I'm just curious.
yeah. So pipes wise, I play a set of nail pipes.
Mm.
Um, and I play the whistles I play are Goldie whistles. Um,
Those are the whistles, right? I feel like anytime my Highland piping heroes show up on a stage playing whistle, it's gonna be a Goldie whistle.
they're the instruments I've played since I started, and yeah, I would love playing those, and the how they feel and the responsiveness and the tone and the sound from those. So yeah, no, amazing instruments for
Mm.
sure. And I think part of that as well, the influence also comes from maybe the artists or people that also play the instrument, the same make of instruments that you play. So
Oh,
like the
sure.
obvious one for whistle players being like so Fluke and Brian Finnegan,
Yeah.
and playing Goldie whistles. So I think like that's a natural kind of attraction. But so yeah, the Goldie whistles, and then I play a set of Fred Morrison real pipes. Um,
Oh, do you?
so
Oh, very
yeah.
nice. But so then what about with the Highland pipes, when you're talking about your instrument setup to make sure you could get the um the in between notes and such. Do you feel like you can doctor just about any reed into being, supple enough that it'll respond to you? Or do you feel like you've got some favorites that you go to get started in the first place?
I think for certainly like likes of setting up a B flat chanter, um, the pitch is obviously and the tuning's the crucial thing. So having reeds that are not going to be, for example, too sharp or too kind of out of range to work
Mm,
with. Um, so there that kind of makes that easier to reach that kind of destination tuning wise.
mm,
Um, so yeah, that's a thing, and um, yeah, and then same with as like solo and band setups, just something that's going to be really kind of consistent and uh, and comfy. So
yeah. With your Highland pipes, are you a sheepskin and cane drone reed purist, or do you dabble in the synthetic? What's your preference there?
so I actually I have a couple of sets of Highland pipes now, and I use both. So I have a set with sheepskin, and I have a set with synthetic, um, which are just essentially just used for different things. So
Yeah.
um, I've kind of dabbled between the two setups for likes of the playing with other instruments, and then the sheepskin over the years has primarily been used for pipe bands.
Yeah.
Um, and at times that's been with cane or synthetic reeds.
Mm.
Um, and then more recently, a synthetic setup that's for like so solo playing, but then also kind of do use the sheepskin from time to time as well. So yeah, just kind of depends on maybe the setting. So
What about a desert island situation where you can only have one of your instruments? So considering your entire setup of all of the instruments you currently have, so it's not you can imagine another instrument you don't have yet and you could have that on a desert island. No, your collection of whistles, your couple sets of pipes, even the piano, you can only have one. Which one would you choose?
oh, that's a toughie. I would, well, for a starter, if we were gonna take a piano, if we're on a desert island, we're gonna need the acoustic one.
Yeah, fair enough. Yep.
uh, Unless we were gonna get creative with the power source.
Yeah, solar panels or something, right?
um. Oh. Hmm.
Do we need to wait until your whistles aren't in the room with you so that we don't want the instruments to be listening here to know which one you choose, right?
I think my next deciding factor would be how long I'm going to be on this desert island.
Oh, I'm gonna
Because
in this hypothetical, let's say forever. Like this is forever. You'll never the one instrument you choose, that's it.
I think I think I would have to take the whistles then, because
Mm.
ultimately the reeds are going to be goosed at some point
Ah, that
in the
is very
pipes.
practically put. Yeah.
Yeah, so at some that they'll be great for a while, but then so like the whistles will out outlive that. I
Fair enough.
think.
Fair enough.
Um, so yeah, maybe a practical choice there.
Mm. So now comes the question that I put to you. So you're not at all big headed for answering this, but I'm curious. And of course, you don't know all of your fans, right? Because your music is out there, and there are those of us out here listening whom you have never met. But who do you think, like as far as you know, who is your biggest fan?
I don't think I've been asked that question before, and that's
I just love making other people I like to make people uncomfortable. I'm a terrible person.
um, to be honest, it's not it's not something I've thought about. It's I love just like if anybody that kind of enjoys the music, um, if they enjoy the music, then that's a great thing. So yeah.
Well, fair enough. But then let's flipping that coin over. Of whom are you a fan? Who do you listen to? Whether they're a direct influence on your music or not. I'm just curious. Who do you enjoy listening to these days?
hmm Um, I listen to like quite a wide range of music, and certainly I often kind of have requests for like events, particularly on piano, like for covers of kind of different things. So
Mm.
um, yeah, it's really varied. I guess yeah. Would you be interested in like the more kind of pipe and folk side, or kind of alternative?
I'm interested. I'd be interested in both, and not to put you totally on the spot, Chris. Of course, no pressure. But yeah, maybe who do you enjoy on the pipings and folk side, and then who do you enjoy otherwise?
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Um, so yeah, so for example, I think I kind of touched upon one there. So likes of Fluke and Brian Finnegan was like particularly when I was first started playing whistle, and like some McGoldrick's music.
Mm.
Um, all right, like a couple of artists there. Um, and then like I couldn't not mention Gordon Duncan's albums, and like some Fred
Yeah.
Morrison. These guys that have had such an influence on so many people.
Yeah.
Um, and then obviously for a good number of years, I played with Inveraray District, so like the kind of top tier solo players like the Stuart Liddell, and also had like Alistair Henderson,
Certainly. Yeah.
influencer in the band, and yeah, uh, like when I was growing up, I think back to the kind of competitive years that, yeah, the top tier solo players, which are obviously countless players to mention there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then, like out with the kind of traditional music, like I love playing and listen to a lot of classical music. Like I often when I'm driving, I've got a bit of either like classic FM on. I find
Oh,
that
really?
relaxing, yeah. So I actually listen to a lot of stuff that's not traditional or folk.
Yeah.
I love jazz as well. A lot of popular stuff. I really like, for example, like kind of thinking uh, more recent like artists like are you familiar with like Jacob Collier?
No, at least I don't think so. I'm about to furiously Google Jacob Collier just to
Yeah.
try to sound like
So
I'm not completely ignorant, you know?
so he's a phenomenal young guy
Oh,
that's
sure, yeah, Jacob Collier. It's funny. I'm aware of him mostly because of TikTok and YouTube, so
yeah.
maybe that's
So
on me. But yeah.
yeah, I love kind of discovering like artists like him that just like their creativity is just yeah, it's just mind blowing at times.
Mm,
Like it's like how did you think of that sort of thing?
mm-hmm,
Just um, but just his again his ability like musically just across the board, not necessarily. I mean, it's obviously a range of instruments with him as well. So um, and like as an arranger and just yeah, like anything like that. That's kind of it's music and like across the board. It's very
mm.
broad. Um, so yeah, and then often have bits of wee bits of pop music on here and there as well. So yeah, I love a wee bit of everything. Wee bits of even musical theatre as well. Like I love a show and film music. Um, so yeah, a wee bit of everything in there, I would say.
Well, again, not that I'm the judge, but it seems to me that whatever you're doing, it's serving you well because this is the just looking at the album. The album is a lovely bit of work, and you know your performances and your tune book too, man. That's that is a lot of output.
Well, thanks very
So
much. I really appreciate that.
no, really, yeah, and I also really appreciate that like what you did with your tune book is including the different several different key options in a lot of cases and chords throughout. I feel like you really had the purchasing musician in mind, you know, and I appreciate that. That was kind of you. I wish all of my favorite artists would do the same thing because it's just so nice as a fan to be able to get it and be like, now I get to play this tune and I can hand it to my friend with the guitar and we can make some music. It's really very fun.
Hmm. Yeah, I think certainly when I was putting the collection together, I think a lot of this, um, the direction for that ultimately has came with different interactions with different musicians and then also through teaching as well, just discovering how different people like to learn music, uh, and the stance that they come from maybe on their particular instruments. So like what they maybe would look to see or like what they would kind of what they would need to kind of just get straight into the music. So I've kind of yeah aimed to uh, you know to make that more um, kind of inclusive um,
Mm.
and yeah just kind of make the opportunity kind of more broad there for people to kind of just get stuck into the tunes. So
Well, yeah, I'm sure it took a little extra time, but like I say, that's very much appreciated. I just I feel like I remember even as a kid, and maybe you've had the same experiences, getting like a piano book from a movie, you know, like a film score kind of piano book, or a band, you know, like the Coldplay piano book or something like that, right? Some band's book of piano arrangements from Mel Bay or one of these big publishers, and opening it up, and it's not it's not what they played, you know. It's like really simplified down and stuff like that, you know, or transposed somewhere else. And so when there's a music book that includes like chord notation, just that right off the bat, I'm like, all right, sweet, they they actually care about us. You know what I mean?
hmm yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Chris, we will make our exit via Haymarket, you might say. Can you tell me anything about track 10, Via Haymarket, as we will fade into it as you tell me about it?
Yeah, so this has got two tunes. The first tune is called 3 to Nitra. It's just a wee play on the fact the tune's written in 3/2 time, and so I wrote that one. It's also from another journey, so that was on a flight to Nitra in Slovakia. And then the second tune actually is also about a journey, one that didn't quite go to plan, as well as the first one. But as the title suggests, Via Haymarket, there was the journey ended up going via Haymarket, which was not intended. Just with some mix-ups on that journey with the trains, but we were all good. That was a rare occasion, and we made it in the end. So
they say it's often to say often people say you lived to tell the tale, right? You in this case you lived to write the tune. So
yeah. So like this second tune, it's one of just a couple of tunes that are like in the collection that I would describe as like irregular. So you've got it's predominantly a reel, but then there's some bars that are in 6/8 time. So it's almost got elements of reel and jig, you could say. But that from like a composition stance, it's intended to kind of reflect that kind of unsettled journey.
Oh sure, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah,
like there's some and then some chromatic use in there as well. So yeah, it's like I guess like some of the tunes are kind of written to try and kind of mirror the sort of experience or like feeling of like the journey or the occasion.